What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing strange encounters with doppelgangers. Color me surprised when I recently received encounter after encounter of people reporting doppelganger phenomenon in my email, and then my favorite source for information covered them right at the exact same time. I find it interesting and incredibly synchronistic that this would all come up now, especially because most of the encounters involve doppelgangers of a loved one, and that's exactly what I've had some experiences with lately. So let me explain. I was visiting my mother and 18-year-old son, as I do every 2 weeks, in order to spend some quality time with them, catch a much-needed break from the daily grind, and clean my mom's house for her because she's my mom and that's how we roll. However, something very disturbing happened about a month ago that I was never really able to shake, and it revolved around my 18-year-old son that some of you might know from my Wednesday night stream, my son Damien. Damien lives with my mother, and on this particular day, I was sitting in the living room when he walked into the house from outside and went straight past me through the house and into the little half bathroom in the back of the house. I said hello to him, and I was like, "What's up, D?" But he didn't even look at me and kept walking right past me. When I heard the bathroom door close, I figured maybe he really had to go and didn't think much of it until about 2 seconds after I heard that door closed, Damien came bounding down the steps from his room upstairs and into the living room to ask me a question. I was, of course, shocked and confused, but me being me, I knew something supernatural had taken place. I mentioned it to him, and we were both kind of nervous about it, so I went and checked the back bathroom, and nobody was there, let alone Damien, who was standing right next to me. Nothing more really came of it. I will say that once I realized I had just seen a doppelganger of my son, I recognized the energy that was coming off of him that first time I saw him as unfamiliar. So when the doppelganger walked from the outside through the house and past me, I did get a really weird kind of vibe and feeling. I thought my son was upset about something. It was a very small shift and something that I don't think would have been noticeable to someone that isn't familiar with seeing and recognizing energy as a physical thing like I am. Anyway, this past weekend, so 2 weekends before you all are watching this video, my mother handed Damien some food. He told her he wasn't hungry and that he appreciated it, but no thanks. My mom was pretty upset and asked him why he had gone into her room and asked her to make him food if he wasn't hungry and didn't want it. Damien insisted he had done no such thing. I believe him because Damien had been outside on the porch with me the whole time and hadn't even gone inside to use the bathroom in a little while. We're now starting to get concerned, and of course, of all things, it's a phenomenon I have no previous experience with or really any knowledge of or about. So my point is, when this information popped up in my source material and the email started flooding in, I knew it had to be for a reason. You all need to hear about some of these encounters, and maybe we can discuss some of the whys and what ifs as well, because I'm telling you it's going to be happening a lot more often and to a lot more people in general now. In fact, it already is happening at an alarming rate, and not enough people are talking about it because there really isn't anywhere to go with it. There's so many different theories and suspicions of what they might be, but there's nothing on doppelganger phenomenon. It's such an unknown subject that I notice most people just kind of gloss right on by it. I'm not going to do that though, because it's not my style. Buckle up, grab onto a loved one that you don't want doppelganged, and let's jump right in. The word doppelganger originally comes from the Germans, and it translates literally to double goer. It means more than someone who just really looks a lot like someone else, though. And I've come to find through my research that the word itself is oftentimes directly connected with strange and paranormal phenomenon. Legends vary widely, with some people and cultures thinking they are merely a shadow of ourselves, like a somewhat ghostly twin or other half that follows us always, but that we can't always see and often aren't aware of. When we do see them, at least according to these legends, it's never a good thing and often symbolizes bad luck or tragedy is about to befall us. There are other legends that say doppelganger is an evil spirit or demon who takes on the image of a certain person in order to trick and confuse both the person and everyone around them for all sorts of nefarious reasons and purposes. Others still believe they are merely a physical manifestation of our own spirit in a way, like a spiritual extension of us. But once that bleeds over into our physical reality, you have the doppelganger phenomenon. Whatever you guys believe, please let me know, because it really runs the gamut with these things. And while I don't really have any real information as to what they actually are myself, I do have a feeling that whatever it is they want and whatever it is they are, it's not a good thing at all. Otherwise, why wouldn't we know more about them or see them more? Even guardian angels, who are literally angels and aren't really known to show themselves, will if the timing is right and a person desperately needs them. Why are doppelgangers so mysterious, and why are they always in the shadows? Those facts alone are reason enough for me to believe that more than likely there's something negative going on with them. I also believe this based on my own recent experiences with them. I felt very uncomfortable, just energetically in my own skin, when my son's doppelganger walked through that room. My own personal opinion is that there is something extremely sinister and possibly downright evil with these entities. They are absolutely indistinguishable from the person they're posing as, and for me, that poses a whole host of other issues. It's a known fact for people like me with abilities, people in this community in general, that no other entity, and especially those that are evil, are ever supposed to be able to mimic human beings down to the very last and finest detail, and that there always must be at least something that's off with them and that alerts the human being that something sinister is afoot. I'll use the example of the black-eyed kids in that they seem otherwise fully human and perfectly normal, albeit a bit awkward and weird, except for the eyes. I've come to believe a bit differently, though, through my research for my new book, but still in all, it's a known fact in the paranormal community that these entities cannot ever fully mimic, not ever, fully mimic human down from the head to the toes, especially not evil entities. Most of the time, the doppelganger will interact with the people somewhere that it's kind of far out of the way of the person they're mimicking, but there are other times when we basically see them out of the corner of our eyes and in the periphery, which makes me wonder even more, what is their deal? Like, seriously, doppelgangers, what's your deal? My mind is already racing and all over the place at the excitement of being able to finally cover these specific entities. So this might end up being a long one because we haven't even gotten to the encounters yet. In a lot of cases, I've seen them randomly and suddenly just existing directly behind someone who's looking in a mirror of all things, which makes me wonder if mirrors have something to do with it, at least some of the time. There are some occasions, though very rare, when the doppelganger is said to be very helpful and acts as a stand-in for its person as well. That is not what we are going to be discussing today for the most part, though if there's time, I may throw one of those encounters in here as well. If there's time. I doubt there will be, though. It isn't the benign we have to worry about, and that's one of the reasons the places I go with all of my videos and the subjects I cover are oftentimes so dark and disturbing. We need to worry about what's happening with our energy, to our spiritual bodies, and how much of us as a whole is together and all existing in one place. I hope that makes sense. Paranormal author Victoria Brandon described in great detail nearly being run down by her own doppelganger, who I think she believed was a spiritual twin of some sort. She said she was driving along on a perfectly normal day when she turned a corner and suddenly saw a giant truck come speeding towards her, driving right at her on the wrong side of the road. She managed to swerve out of the way, and as she did, she looked over and saw that the driver of the truck was her own exact double, and that it had a sinister smile plastered on its face as it made direct eye contact with her. She said throughout the whole ordeal, she experienced a very real and very thick sense of malevolence and negativity that emanated off of the double. She felt this even though there were two whole vehicles between them and a lot of space. She said she felt, quote, an eerie sense of quiet and suspension of normal thoughts, end quote, which didn't go away until the truck and her other self were completely out of her view. The truck sped off and kept on going in the opposite direction, and that was that. Interesting that it was an author of the paranormal that experienced all of this, and that's kind of good in a way because she was able to immediately write about it, and she discussed it thoroughly and often. That means the information got out there quickly and from a first-person point of view, which is what I was trying to do in the beginning, and I hope it didn't come off too rambly. However, the skeptics say it's the fact that she is a paranormal author that lends credence to their own skepticism. Our next witness said she encountered a doppelganger that tried to lure her to her own death back in 2015 using her own small child. Her daughter was 4 years old at the time, and she, that same daughter, and others in her family were out on the beach hunting for seashells, and it looked like a major storm was about to roll in. Her daughter insisted that they continue hunting for shells and not vacating the beach, which the witness thought was the smartest thing to do at that point. The woman had older daughters who were leaving, and they were walking off of the beach to go somewhere nearby to have lunch with their father. The woman made sure her 4-year-old, who was going with them, was caught up to her sisters before she went back to hunting for shells. She walked along the beach further for at least another 20 minutes or so before the waves started getting quite treacherous looking, and she finally decided to call it quits with the shells. So her daughter didn't want to go, but she made sure that her little 4-year-old was walking far enough away with the older daughters that if she turned around or something, she would have seen her. And then she kept continuing to find more shells as she promised her daughter she would. She started to make her way towards where her daughters were walking off the beach. Her daughters had already gone because it had been 20 minutes, but she wanted to go and join them for lunch. But she was inexplicably struck with a feeling of extreme dread that seemed to have been brought on by nothing at all and coming from absolutely nowhere. She just happened to look up in time to see her 4-year-old daughter, whom she had just watched walk off the beach with her 2 sisters, in the sea. She was in the water. She was caught in the waves and very obviously she was drowning. Our witness said, quote, "I have never seen such a rough sea, and so I turned back with a feeling of unexplainable dread. I couldn't shake it. I looked out into the ocean and I could have sworn I saw my 4-year-old daughter drowning in the waves. I knew with absolute certainty that she was safe back in the cottage with her father and siblings, but yet there she was, drowning in the rough seas. I started wading into the water to try to help her. I was in a total state of panic. I was crying and absolutely hysterical. I knew that if I went into the water, I would drown, but there I was. I was going, even though I knew that it wasn't really my baby out there. I felt like something wanted me to go into the water so I would die. I had to fight the instinct to help her. Keep in mind that the thing in the water was the spitting image of her. I took off running to the cottage, crying the entire time. My young daughter greeted me at the door. I was never in my life so happy to see her. To this day, I am convinced that the thing in the water was her doppelganger, trying to lure me to my own death. I know some people say you can only see your own double, but I wonder. I hope I never have this happen again. I hope this never happens to anyone who is reading this. The desire to go into the water was stronger than any force I have ever known." End quote. So at first, I thought the doppelganger was the one who was following behind the sisters in order to fool the woman into thinking she was safely off the beach. However, I was surprised to see that the woman knew so certainly that the little girl in the water was not her daughter. I don't know if I would have been so sure due to the fact that the little girl didn't want to stop hunting for seashells in the first place. I don't know, guys. I don't think I would have been able to walk away. That's tremendous strength, but then again, she felt like something was very off from the beginning, and therefore I believe she had some supernatural help from her team and being able to walk away. As a mother to a 4-year-old myself, that's the only way I'm able to explain it. It had to have been supernatural. Her ability to walk away from what looked like her child drowning, going to die. Also, she said she had continued searching for shells along the beach for at least a full 20 minutes. So I can see where it wouldn't make sense that a little 4-year-old girl would still be struggling in the water after all that time. I don't know, guys. This is one of those phenomenon that always gives me the creeps. Like, no matter what the story is, it's freaking creepy. Our next witness says she encountered some sort of evil double of her beloved grandmother. She was 15 years old when it happened, and her grandmother was always in her room cleaning one thing or another, and it was kind of just something our witness was used to at that point. One day, she came home to find her grandmother in her bedroom, but instead of cleaning, she was merely sitting at the edge of the witness's bed and staring into the closet. She said, quote, "She wasn't moving at all. It was like she was suspended in the middle of cleaning the closet. I asked her if she was okay, but she totally ignored me. My 85-year-old grandmother just continued to stare into the closet. Suddenly, she turned her head slowly toward me and gave me the coldest of stares. She had the evilest eyes I have ever seen. A chill ran up and down my spine. Those were not my grandmother's eyes, I thought. Then she looked away from me and walked into my closet, closing the door behind her. But when I went to my closet, she wasn't there. She had literally disappeared into thin air, completely gone. I froze for a few seconds. Then I yelled for her and heard her say, "I'm down here in the kitchen. Dinner's almost ready." I ran to the kitchen to find her standing there cooking away. Then I asked her if she was here the whole time in the kitchen. "Of course I was, dear. Dinner's not going to make itself," she laughed. I mean, she had no idea what had just gone on upstairs. What did I find in my bedroom that day? I still have no idea, end quote. And that's how so many of these encounters end, with people having no freaking idea what's going on. It's chilling. I mean, am I wrong? Isn't this chilling? That was definitely one of the more demonic seeming doppelganger encounters I have ever heard of. It's usually the case where the entity, whatever it is that's beneath the disguise, tries its hardest to mimic the person, but this one seemed intent on causing fear. Maybe it was feeding. I mean, who knows? I would be interested to know if anything happened to the grandmother or the witness after this, like an accident or something, but there's no more information and we're only left once again to speculate. We're left with what we're left with. This didn't come from an email, so I can't even ask the person. The next one is something I've been hearing so much of lately. It's almost become commonplace to me, but you guys might be surprised to hear it once I explain it to you all. It's happened to me a few times, and I have no idea what's happening when it does. The witness is from Reddit, and his name on there is Trey. Trey said it was 2005 and 7 in the morning when he was all alone in his house. He suddenly felt tired for no reason, and so he went back to sleep. He woke up again about 2 hours later at 9:15 a.m. and went to the bathroom to relieve himself. As he walked past the bathroom mirror, he didn't see anything in his peripheral vision at first, which he thought was kind of odd. You know how when you walk past a mirror, you see the movement at the very least out of the corner of your eye. He didn't see that, and so he looked again, this time straight forward at the mirror, and what he came face to face with is the stuff of nightmares. He saw his reflection, but there was something really strange about it. He said, quote, "I had a white shirt and my reflection had a blue shirt. My eyes are hazel, a brownish, greenish, amber-like color. My reflection was blood red. It was staring at me covered in blood. It was looking so evilly, like he wanted to kill me. I couldn't move away. I was frozen still. This is where it gets horrible. The reflection starts talking to me. It starts saying, 'Why are you so afraid of yourself?' I couldn't talk, but I tried to reply to it in my mind. I said, 'Myself. I linger inside of you. I am the one who will corrupt you.' Now I started to worry because now I know it has control over my body. I said, 'Where did you come from?' It replies, 'I am from all the hatred you have over everything which I feed from the power, and soon I will have enough to kill you.' So I said, 'If you're a part of me, right, killing me means you die too.' Saying this ticked that thing off. Now it's grinning and chuckling. 'You are correct, but you are still a fool.' Its hands looked like it was reaching out of the mirror towards me, and it touched my shoulder. I felt dizzy as if I lost a lot of blood, and then it said, 'You will see what I become, but first see what I am now.' The vision he showed me was so horrible I never told my family. It was some sort of deformed beast with 4 eyes and a big horn. Its left arm was bony and little, while the right was big and pulsing. Its legs were connected like a big tail, and it looked like it was growing. It looked decayed and rotten, but it was alive, and the vision disappeared. The thing in the mirror yelled, 'Be gone!' I had my control back, and I ran outside of my house and waited for my parents to come home." End quote. Now, guys, I do have to wonder about this one, but as you all should know by now, I'm never one to discount someone else's claimed experiences. It did seem like it was a bit much that an entity that evil would even take the time to talk to a young kid it's trying to kill or possess or whatever, let alone to tell the boy what its intentions are at all. But hey, you never know, and assuming that this is in fact a real encounter, assuming it is, let's break it down just a little bit. It was very brave of him to immediately stand up to it, and that he knew killing it would also kill him, or so he thought. I mean, entities can live inside of us, and they sometimes do, but when we die, they leave. They don't die with us. So this also made me question the validity of this particular story, as an entity out inside of us, one that has maybe overtaken us like that, would only be a part of us while we are here in human form and alive, and is not entangled with our souls, and therefore would not, in fact, die when we do. It wouldn't cease to exist just because the host does. It's not a freaking tapeworm. However, it could be that the entity was merely lying to get him to try to off or hurt himself. But then again, why would it have gotten mad as though he had caught it off guard with the truth he shouldn't have known when it wasn't the truth? The entity should have been pleased that he thought the wrong thing. I don't know about this one, but like I said, I'm not going to try and discredit it, but I will point out all of my questions with it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, please, if you will. In all the reports of doppelgangers that I've come across, I noticed the most common theme, even more so than someone seeing themselves, is seeing someone you love or that you are very close to otherwise. Reddit user GeoBite said that when he was a little boy, his father's doppelganger paid him a visit. It was a bright and sunny day, and he and his mother were just relaxing inside of the 2-bedroom apartment where they lived at the time. It was a Sunday, and they had nothing planned, and so were surprised when the doorbell rang. The kid looked out of a big window that faced the door, and he saw that it was his father. That would have been all well and good, and maybe Dad just forgot his keys. However, our witness said his father was asleep in another room of the apartment at the time. He continued by saying, quote, "I checked the window and I saw my father, so I thought, and I was going to the door to open it. When I was going to unlock the door, my mother pulled me away and screamed at me not to open the door because I didn't know who it was. I told her I see my dad. She freaked out, went to the window and checked, and then she checked the peephole. She started to get terrified and she said to go to the furthest room in the apartment and not to come out. She goes and wakes up my dad. My dad gets up angry and confused. We told him what we saw, and the man was still knocking at the door. My dad screams, 'Who is it?' No answer. He said he's going to call the cops, all the regular threats, but nothing. We saw, while my dad was busy screaming at him, that he was just standing still at the front door. So my mom took us to the farthest room from the door while my dad got ready to open the door with a metal bat. Once he did, the man was gone. My dad goes out looking everywhere around the apartment. The apartment door was a heavy metal door and always was heard when someone comes in and out, but we heard nothing that morning nor nothing when my dad opened the door. We heard no footsteps either, but my brother, my mother, and I saw that man that looked exactly like my father," end quote. I think what he's trying to say at the end there is that they lived in this apartment where you had to come in a front door and then you go up to the apartment. I used to live in one of those, and you always hear that super duper loud heavy door, and nobody heard it. This type of phenomenon with doppelgangers and doubles really freaks me out because I wonder how many people have fallen for it in history, right? I mean, haven't you ever known someone who was suddenly and seemingly out of nowhere just a different person as far as how they behaved or even how they spoke to you? I wonder sometimes if it's the case of a doppelganger taking over and doing who knows what to the actual person. How many times has someone passed away only for the family to never even know because this strange double just takes their place? And of course, that's a rhetorical or hypothetical question because we would have no way of knowing. I mean, I don't know. It sounds a bit far-fetched, but trust me, it happens, and more than most normal people think it does. Normal meaning people outside of this community. Always have code words with your loved ones, guys. It's not even a joke. So our next encounter comes from Reddit user Athenriel, and it brings up another point as to why the doppelgangers really don't ever seem to speak. It isn't that they never do, and I'm going to share a story with you guys at the end that will kind of prove that, but for the most part, they act kind of like silent spirits of some sort, and it's almost impossible to pin them down because for the most part, they all behave so differently, and there isn't much that remains constant throughout encounters. This witness also said he saw his father's doppelganger. He vividly remembers being 4 or 5 years old and on the floor in his living room and playing with a Happy Meal toy from the movie A Bug's Life when the door opened and he saw his father just standing there looking at him. Creep. Well, the guy who was looking at him is someone he thought was his father. He said about it, quote, "The door opened and the person I saw just looked like my dad. I didn't get to see my dad very often. He worked in road construction and would often only be home on the weekends due to distance. So I was excited to see him. I remember shouting, 'Daddy, Daddy, Daddy!' I was trying to get his attention and growing more and more annoyed as he completely ignored me and just kept staring forward and walking until he phased right through the wall. As a small child, I didn't know how to process what I had just seen. I wasn't scared, but I was really confused. People can't go through walls. I don't recall anything else super strange happening in that house other than recalling some nightmares/dreams I had, despite it being nearly 20 years later, along with an incident of a toy, a small rubbery Rudolph, constantly disappearing, which frustrated me because I really liked it. Of course, as an adult, the really creepy thing that stood out to me is that the wall this apparition walked through would have led right to my bedroom," end quote. Our next witness is a wife who claims to have seen her husband's doppelganger not too long after they had gotten married. They were living in a small one-bedroom apartment at the time. She said, quote, "One night I woke up all of a sudden. I was facing the walk-in closet. I saw my husband in the middle of it, his back facing me, just looking around the closet. He was wearing the same clothes that he wore to bed. I thought it was really strange for him to walk into the closet since none of his belongings were in there, and plus it was the middle of the night. I propped myself up and I asked him what he was doing in my closet and told him to come back to bed. His face turned slightly, but just enough for me to see half of his cheek. I was really sleepy, so I turned back to bed and fell asleep. I'm not sure how much time passed, but I woke up again to my husband getting into bed. I asked him why he was in the closet, and he told me he had no idea what I was talking about. He just went to the bathroom. We both fell back asleep, and I tried to continue the conversation in the morning. He swore he just went to the bathroom, and it was no more than 1 minute. He thought I was definitely dreaming, but I know what I saw. That person in the closet was my husband, or at least looked 100% like him. I can't think of any logical explanation. Even if my husband had some reason to lie, I still can't see how he could get to the middle of the closet without knocking anything over in a mess," end quote. Once again, I will say I don't understand how these entities, whatever they are, can get away with completely and totally mimicking a human being. It's supposed to be explicitly against the rules. I am, of course, talking about the spiritual rules or rules of and between realms, but it still really creeps me out. I wonder if there would be like a birthmark or something small like that would be missing on the doppelganger if anyone were ever actually able to examine one more closely. It seems like the encounters with them are always brief, and I wonder if that's maybe an answer to the question. I mean, no one ever seems to be in the presence of one for long enough to really be able to look at all of the little finer details that make someone unique. The encounters are over so quickly that it's hard to really say if every single thing really is the same, or if they just look enough like those whose images they're taking over to satisfy the person they're trying to trick. Kind of like I think they're on this side. I have 2 birthmarks right here. One here, and I have another one right here. Like, would the doppelganger have that? I think it would be like those little things. Like, I have a scar on my eyebrow. Like, those things would be missing. Or like if someone doppelganged me right now, they wouldn't have this bruise. Do you know what I mean? Like, stuff you may not notice. My oldest son, what is it called? He has 2 different color eyes. So one's like greenish and one's blue. Like, he has heterochromia, I believe it's called. Hypochromia, something like that. So would both his eyes be like blue if he was doppelganged? And I don't even know if doppelganged is a word, but I like it, so it's a word now. So the same witness from above said that she didn't only encounter her husband's double once, and in fact it happened again after they moved. Before I get into that, though, I want to quickly mention that her husband was sleeping right next to her when she saw him standing in the closet like that and was totally unaware of it. Like, she didn't remember he was sleeping next to her in the first place, or at least didn't even think about it at the time because she asked her husband what he was doing when all she had to do was look next to her in bed and see that her husband was sleeping there. This brings up a whole host of other questions, like was she being lured into the closet or something like that, and part of that was making her not notice that her actual husband was right next to her so that she would think the thing in the closet was really him. I truly have no idea, and I'm talking myself into a headache again. It stands to reason that if these entities were the kind who fed off of our fear, then they would want us to know that they aren't who they're posing as, so they could eat the fear and terror. Something like that would immediately make us feel. So in my opinion, they more than likely aren't energetic feeders or vampires of some sort. So anyway, she said that she and her husband moved to a new house and she saw the double again. I'll just let her tell it. She said, quote, "While I was moving the clothes, I saw my husband walk into the den. It was as clear as day. I thought he was going by to play some video games or use his computer. After I loaded all of the clothes into the dryer, I walked back into the living room. I saw my husband sitting in the middle of the living room. I immediately asked him when he went back to the living room. He was really confused and said he hadn't left his seat in the last 30 minutes. I told him I saw him walk into the den just a minute ago. How did he walk out of the den without me seeing or hearing him? I know I saw him both times. Both times he appeared clearly right in front of me," end quote. Again, I wish I had more information, like if there was some turmoil in the home at the time, or if the husband had any sort of accident right before or after her encounters, but I only have what I have and that information isn't a part of it, unfortunately. Our next encounter comes from a woman who goes by the name Boss's Wife on Reddit. She said that she and her husband live in an old farmhouse and that there are a lot of other paranormal activity and supernatural happenings going on in the home and on the property, that to have to deal with this phenomenon on top of everything else is almost more than she can take. She said, quote, "Last night I was in the bathtub. My husband came in the bathroom to wash his hands and went back out to do laundry. He was in the laundry room and looked through the kitchen and saw what he thought was me in the hallway, buck naked. He called my name and he said she turned her face toward him and gave a look like she didn't know who he was. Then she walked a step behind a column and our son came out from the same column from the opposite way. Our son asked who my husband was talking to and said that he hadn't seen me. My husband came into the bathroom where I was still in the tub. He made me swear that I hadn't left the tub. He was really freaked out and he made us follow him from room to room the rest of the night and announce ourselves if we came into a room where he was," end quote. Okay, so while I think the husband's reaction was a little much, a little aggressive maybe, I can see why he felt the need to have them do that in that moment. However, wouldn't the floor have gotten wet if she had left the bathtub at least a little bit? And even if it wouldn't have, how would she have moved so quickly and avoided seeing their son at all? It makes no sense, and I hope he doesn't remain so closed off that he can maybe try and understand what's happening in his home a little bit more. I wonder too, after reading through so many of these encounters, if maybe we're witnessing the loved ones from another dimension or something like that. Like, is there some bleed through? I'll use the previous encounter as an example of what I'm trying to say because, again, it makes sense in here, but when I try to say it, not so much. So maybe she was the wife, but from another dimension, and she isn't married to him, but to someone else in that dimension, and accidentally slipped dimensions for a second or two, just long enough to have seen him standing there when perhaps she went naked after taking a bath or something, and she turned to walk away because she thought she saw a ghost, or maybe she thought whoever her husband was in that reality was randomly standing in her kitchen and had just seen her naked. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm trying to go by script, but I think I could explain this better without it. So imagine there's bleed through from the dimensions, okay? And I know the angle's a little wonky, guys. Sorry, I didn't notice till just now. So there's bleed through of dimensions, and whoever she is in the other dimension that slipped is not married to that guy. Say her husband in this dimension is like her neighbor in the other dimension. So she's feeling sexy, walking through the house nude. I mean, who doesn't do that, right? And she sees her neighbor standing in her kitchen and she's like freaked out and she doesn't say anything, just walks off to go tell her husband like, yo, so-and-so is in the kitchen. Or she doesn't know who he is in that dimension and she thinks she's seen a ghost. I mean, I hope that makes more sense because I might be onto something there. I really think I am. At least in some of the cases. And I mean, for lack of more information, anything's really possible in my opinion at this point. I've got so many encounters, guys, that I can go on for days and days. So if you want a part 2, a part 3, I'll definitely be more than willing to give you one. For now, though, let's talk about the rarest type of doppelganger phenomenon, and that's when we see strangers. I know it sounds weird because if a person is a stranger, then how do we know they're also a doppelganger? Let me explain. I came across an encounter about a young girl who worked at a fast food restaurant for the overnight shift. She worked the shift alone because normally it was very slow, and at this time she was restocking some of the front of house stuff like sauces and cups late one night. There were no other employees and no customers in the restaurant at that time. She stocked the cups and went to the back of the place to get the lids when she heard a weird noise coming from the front. She hurried back and saw that all of the cups she had just stocked were all over the floor. If any of you have ever worked at a fast food place, or even if you've just gotten your own drink from one, you know that the cups are stuck in there and kept inside with a little plastic piece. It's not possible for them to just fall to the floor unless you pull one out. Like, they're not going to just drop. Maybe 1 or 2 on the end, but not 4 different sizes of cups and almost every single one of them. That's not going to happen. Not possible. Also, they'd have to fall sideways, so it doesn't make sense. The girl was confused, but she went to work picking up the mess. She admitted that she was a bit freaked out at that point. She stands up and turns around, and there's a man and a woman standing at the counter. The bell for the door didn't ring, and she had no idea how they got in because that bell was meant to ring, and it always did. She was startled and asked them what she can get for them. The couple appear to be arguing in whispers with one another like she isn't even there, to the point where she then gets nervous, thinking that maybe they're going to rob her. All she heard of the conversation was the female saying, "We lost them. We lost them." The couple finally realizes she's standing there and asks for 2 large coffees, black. She gets the coffees for them and walks it over to the table they've since sat down at with their change. They paid her. The witness walked away but could still hear them whispering loudly to one another, and they seemed very, very nervous and like they were acting really strangely. The whole situation had her very anxious and on guard because the couple was acting so oddly and they seemed to be in some sort of distress. However, they seemed at that point to kind of just be arguing with one another somewhat and drinking a little bit of their coffees at the table. No sooner does she get back behind the counter than someone pulls into the parking lot headed to the drive-thru. Now, she first notices, like when she brought the coffees to the couple's table, she saw the car that they parked right in front of the restaurant, so she knew what they drove there. She immediately noticed that the car pulling into the drive-thru is the exact same color, year, make, model. Like, it's the exact same car. So when this car pulls into the drive-thru, the couple hadn't been able to see it, but I guess they know that someone's there. They are absolutely panic-stricken at that point, and she can hear the woman freaking out and saying, "It's them, it's them." The man tells her to calm down, to shut up. The witness goes to the drive-thru window, and the car drives up because it's the middle of the night, so I guess there's only one window that's in use for the overnight shift. There's a man and a woman in the car, but it's the exact same man and woman that are in the restaurant, and they're driving the same car that the couple had pulled in with as well. The witness is totally startled and looks back to see if the couple were somehow pranking her or something, but they're still sitting there and they're still super duper nervous. She shakily asks the couple in the vehicle what they want, and they order the same exact thing as the couple inside of the restaurant. 2 large coffees, black. She tells them she has to brew a pot, and so the guy tells her to go and do it. He's like pretty ornery and like aggressive towards her. He hands her the money to pay even before she brought his drinks back to him, and he grabbed her arm and asked her if anyone else was in the restaurant with her. She's frantic at that point, but she did have the presence of mind to tell him no one else was in there. He asked her if she was sure. Like, "You sure you're by yourself? No one else in there? You sure?" And she insisted no one was in there with her. He said okay, and he let her go to make the fresh pot of coffee. So she goes to the coffee machine to make the fresh pot, and the couple at the table run up to the counter, and the man tells her to put some white powdery substance into the coffees and give it to the couple in the car. Our witness refuses, saying she can't give someone contaminated beverages, but the guy and the woman look desperate, and he pleads with her. He begs her. He begs her, and he says to her that if the couple in the car looked exactly like him and the girl with him there in the restaurant, then she needed to do that in order to make them go away. The girl said she never would have agreed no matter how much they begged and no matter how off the whole situation seemed, but she was confused and felt like she was being compelled to do what he was asking. He hands her the coffees with the powder substance in it, and she goes and gives it to the couple in the car. They take a sip and vanish, along with the car, right before her eyes. She's in shock, she's terrified, she's confused, but she looks over and sees the previous car has also gone from the parking lot, and so is the couple who had first come inside. She's all alone again. She runs over to the table, and there's a huge tip. I don't know how much. She just said a really huge tip, and a note written on the back of the receipt that says, quote, "Thanks for making our demons go away," end quote. The girl's manager showed up to start her shift, and when she told her what happened, the manager didn't believe her. She checked the security cameras and all the footage, and to both their shock and their horror, the entire thing was caught on tape, and everything she said was right and had happened. It had actually happened, and it happened exactly the way the girl said it had. Guys, when I first saw that, I was floored. I believed it immediately too, and I watched it many times because I just couldn't believe how crazy it was. I believed with that one that perhaps the first couple had like died in a car wreck or something, and I don't know why, but I kept thinking that. And maybe the doubles were some sort of evil entity trying to take over their lives or something. This goes back to what I was saying before about how many people die, and their loved ones probably don't even know they're living with some sort of evil or lower vibrational replacement. Heck, even if the doppelganger isn't evil, it's certainly an imposter, and I don't believe any good could ever come from something like that. I think maybe those two who came into the restaurant knew the other entities would take over their identities if they didn't do something about it. But, I mean, what the hell was that powdery stuff they put into their coffees? Why does stuff like this always seem to happen to people who are terrified and least likely to ask questions and actually try to understand what's going on instead of just being scared of it? And that's no judgment, no shame. I'm just saying, like, how many of you would have asked why they had doppelgangers after them and what the white powdery stuff was, why it made them disappear, what the hell is going on, why are you so nervous? Maybe the couple were into some sort of dark magic and had accidentally summoned or purposefully conjured something. I do see doppelgangers in a lot of places that otherwise have a lot of paranormal and otherworldly activity going on already. I just want to say, guys, before we end here, that skeptics and non-believers will point to medical science and some explanation about hallucinating. I did look it up, but it didn't make, I mean, I'm not a brain scientist or a rocket surgeon. I didn't understand enough to really break it down, but it was some explanation about hallucinating, seeing yourself from outside of your body, which I find absolutely hilarious because they don't believe, scientifically I mean, that out-of-body experiences are real things and they believe they're mere hallucinations. But when you mention a doppelganger, they immediately mention out-of-body experiences. Also, they're forgetting one very important fact here, and that's that a lot of the time it's someone else, and oftentimes someone with no reason to lie about it will see someone they know doing something the person was never actually doing in a place they've never actually been. We aren't talking about seeing someone who looks exactly like your great Aunt Susie at the bus stop. We're talking about actually seeing your great Aunt Susie at the bus stop, having a conversation with her, riding the bus with her to her house, only to realize she's been home all along and was never at the bus stop in the first place. That's what we're dealing with here. And it's becoming more and more common and worrisomely so. Like, we should all be worried about this. That's all I have for you today, guys. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed the content, if you enjoyed hanging out with me, if you enjoyed hanging out in the premiere. I don't know why I'm doing that. I want to show you guys something really quick. Subscribe if you haven't already. Here is some Gemma Jade merch. Yeah, baby. Check it out. I am super excited. I'm going to put the unboxing up in the corner, wherever it goes, I think up here. If you haven't watched it, I did a live unboxing of a huge box full of stuff. License plates, bookmarks, coasters, keychains. She did everything. Gym bags, all different kinds of shirts in all different colors. She did hoodies. I mean, I was crying by the end of the show. So please watch that live stream. Go and order some stuff. My stuff will be on the website, hopefully, by the time you guys see this video, and if not, very soon after. And even if you don't want Gemma Jade merch, go and look at Jive Creations. I'm going to put that up in the corner as well, the video I did on them. It's Miss Lotus Girl Towing Tennille's sister, Arisha McCoy. And let me tell you something, that girl's got talent. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you'd like to make a donation to the channel, all of that information will be in the description box. PayPal, Cash App. Join my Patreon and get a free personal intuitive oracle reading, a general remote from me once a month as a thank you, as a gift. Also, if you'd like to send me a gift, my Amazon wish list gift link, guys, the donations pay for decks, they pay for equipment, they pay for backgrounds, they pay for lighting, they pay for lots of stuff, okay? And they also pay me to work. Like, this is my job, right? Yeah. The links for my books on paperback and Kindle on Amazon will also be in the description box. Missing the Faith Theory, Encounters with Evil, 101 True and Terrifying Stories, Shadow Entities, Sleep Paralysis, and Beyond, all written by yours truly. Please check them out. Okay, that's a great way to support me. If you want an autographed copy, or if you want an autographed copy of any of my TMP Press articles, the coloring book that the creator of TMP Press, the main guy, I don't know what that's called at a magazine, Thomas, he is amazing. He's incredible. He did a picture of me for the coloring book, and it's over there, but it's underneath a bunch of my oracle decks, and I'm just so excited about that. So if you want an autographed copy of any of that, email me, GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. If you want to know how to get merch, it's www.facebook.com/JiveCreations, but the links will be either a pinned comment or in the description box. Check out the description box. Right here on Wednesday nights, you will find myself in Ghost Dragon ZW from 7:15ish p.m. Eastern Time. I will pull one card from one random deck and tell you what your next week or two is going to be like. I do not miss. I try to go until everyone is read for, but I do try to end as well between 11 and 11:30. So if you want to come in and get a reading, try to get your name on the list by 10 10:30 at the latest p.m. Eastern Time. Every other Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, you have Chillax and Chat, myself, Ghost Dragons EW, and Miss Paranormal Pixie, Lara. Every other Thursday, so the Thursdays in between, it is just Miss Lara with Conversations with Lara, the Paranormal Pixie Hour. I'm so proud to have that on my channel. Friday nights at midnight, Midnight Vibes with a Ghost Dragon, and he goes on at midnight, and both he and Lara have as much time as they want. They can do whatever, they want to do. I trust them completely. Go and show some love, show some support. All of the super chats and super stickers in all of the live streams, not just Intuitive Oracle, go to the channel, go to helping me, go to paying me so I can buy things for the channel. 90% of it goes back into the channel, guys. Trust me on that, Also, every other Monday, afternoon talk. So the Monday that you are watching this video at 11 a.m. Eastern, at noon, it'll be myself and Ghost Dragons EW doing afternoon talk, where we kind of talk about things and stuff, just like Chillax and Chat. But we know a lot of you guys now are places where it's very much later than when we're streaming, so we wanted to give everyone a chance to hang out with us in a live stream. So that's why we do it at noon Eastern Time. Be kind to each other, guys. It doesn't cost anything. Be kind to yourselves and never accept anything less than others being kind to you. If nobody told you today, you are amazing. You are perfectly made, as imperfect as you may feel that you are. You can do it. You can accomplish anything. Abundance, blessing is your birthright. I believe in you. Don't forget, check out Gemma Jade merch at Jive Creations on Facebook. I will put the link. I will put the little iCards to the other videos as quickly as I can. And I just love and appreciate you guys so much. You guys are so tremendous. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I'll see you next time. Bye.